Your demons thrive in denial. Clarity exposes them. The longer you refuse to acknowledge what's wrong, the more power it gains over you. Denial is the breeding ground for manipulation, for betrayal, for the subtle erosion of your spirit. When you convince yourself that it's not that bad, when you justify mistreatment because of shared history, when you silence your instincts just to keep the peace, you're not protecting the relationship. You're protecting the demon hiding inside it. And that demon isn't some external creature with horns. It's a pattern. It's a person. It's a mindset. It's the voice that tells you to look the other way when the damage is coming from someone you love. The problem with denial is that it wears comfort like armor. It gives you a false sense of safety. You convince yourself you're strong because you're enduring it. You tell yourself you're being mature by letting it go. You rationalize someone's repeated disrespect by saying they're family or they've been through a lot. But demons are smart. They use your empathy against you. They hide behind the guilt you carry, the loyalty you give, and the hope you hold on to. They count on your silence. They thrive when you keep the door open just wide enough for them to slip in and stay. Clarity, on the other hand, is the light they fear. The moment you stop explaining things away and start calling them what they are, the game changes. You stop pretending the passive-aggressive comments, all jokes. You stop excusing emotional distance as they're just going through something. You start noticing the pattern instead of the apology. Clarity doesn't come gently. It cuts. It strips the comfort off the wound and shows you just how long you've been bleeding. But it also wakes you up. And once you see clearly, you can't unsee. Some people in your life only hold power over you because you've refused to look at them with honest eyes. You've chosen the fantasy over the facts. You've held onto the potential instead of the pattern. But you cannot heal what you keep excusing. And you cannot be free while pretending you're not in chains. Demons don't need to drag you down. They just need you to stay still long enough for them to build a prison out of your passivity. The denial often starts with subtle betrayals, the small things you let slide. The tone that didn't sit right, the lie you caught but didn't confront. And over time, those little moments add up. You teach people how to treat you, not through confrontation, but through what you let slide. Demons notice. They document. They know exactly where your blind spots are because they've been watching you avoid them. They slip through the cracks of your unwillingness to speak up. They manipulate your desire for peace. And they build empires in the silence you thought was strength. Clarity is dangerous to demons because it brings accountability. It takes the spotlight off your self-blame and puts it on their behavior. Clarity demands truth, and truth doesn't flinch under pressure. It doesn't back down when guilt is thrown like a weapon. It stands its ground, and in doing so, it forces everything around it to reveal its true form. Some of the people you love won't survive that exposure. They were only able to operate in your life because you stayed in the fog. But when the fog clears, when the pattern becomes undeniable, when you start asking real questions and listening to the answers instead of filtering them through old attachments, you'll realize just how many demons you've let live rent free in your head, your heart, and your house. The hardest part about clarity is not seeing others for who they are. It's seeing yourself for what you've allowed. But that recognition isn't weakness. It's power. It's the moment you stop playing small to protect dysfunction. It's the moment you stop calling disrespect normal. It's the moment the demon realizes its time is up, because you're no longer available for denial. You're no longer making space for shadows in a room that demands light. Your story is not your shame. It's your strategy. The things you've survived, the pain you've endured, the chapters you don't talk about because you think they disqualify you. Those aren't stains on your legacy. They're fuel for your future. You weren't broken for nothing. You weren't betrayed for no reason. Every wound, every setback, every scar is part of a battle plan. Not a sign of weakness, but a blueprint for resilience. The problem is most people are so busy hiding their story that they never learn how to use it. They spend their lives shrinking from their truth instead of standing on it. They carry it like a burden instead of wielding it like a weapon. People will try to shame you for your story because they're uncomfortable with how strong it makes you. They'll remind you of your mistakes to distract you from your mission. They'll say, "Who do you think you are?" When you start to rise, you're not realizing that it's the very weight of your past that gave you the muscle to climb. You see, the ones who try to reduce you to your worst moments are often the ones most threatened by your healing. Because once you stop hiding your story, they can no longer use it to control you. That's why owning your story is a power move. It's a declaration, a warning, a message to the world that says, yes, you. I've been through hell. I took notes. When you own your story, you strip the shame from it. You disarm the lies that others have tried to attach to your name. You say, this happened to you, but it didn't end me. And that scares people who spent years trying to define you by your damage. But your damage was never the final word. It was the setup for a new strategy. Your pain taught you how to discern. Your heartbreak taught you how to protect your peace. Your failures taught you how to adjust your flight plan without aborting the mission. That's strategy, That's power born from pressure. There's nothing shameful about being wounded. Shame comes when you let those wounds define you instead of refine you. And for too long, you've been carrying a version of your story that only highlights your losses. That version was designed by people who didn't want you to see yourself as whole. But you're not the person you were when the trauma happened. You're not the child who didn't know better. You're not the friend who kept forgiving betrayal just to keep the peace. You're not the adult who kept betraying yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. You're the one who survived. And survival doesn't need to be hidden. It needs to be studied. Everything you've endured has given you insight into yourself, into others, into what love isn't, into what trust looks like when it's real versus when it's conditional. You learned the hard way, but you learned. And now it's time to stop burying that knowledge under guilt, because you didn't just go through something, you grew through it. And growth becomes strategy when it's intentional. When you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? When you stop wishing the past was different and start using it to shape a future where you're no longer naive, you're no longer accessible to chaos, no longer afraid of confrontation because you know exactly who you are and what you've overcome, your story holds keys, not just for your freedom, but for someone else's breakthrough. The story you're ashamed of might be the roadmap someone else desperately needs. But they'll never hear it if you keep pretending you're untouched. And you'll never reach your full potential if you keep trying to disconnect from the very experiences that made you strong, wise, and dangerous to anything that tries to reduce you again. When you shift your perspective from shame to strategy, you stop fighting your past and start leading from it. You stop apologizing for being wounded and start leading like someone who's been to war and came back with clarity, purpose, and precision. Because when you stop letting your story haunt you, you start letting it guide you. And that changes everything. Family titles don't exempt people from being toxic. The labels, mother, father, sister, brother, cousin, are not shields against accountability. They don't give someone the right to disrespect, manipulate, belittle, or control you simply because you share blood, But that's what many people are taught to believe from a young age. That because someone raised you, fed you, or shares your DNA, they are above confrontation. That to question them is disrespectful. That to distance yourself is betrayal. But the truth is toxicity doesn't care about genetics. It wears many faces, and sometimes it wears the face of someone who once tucked you in at night. It's hard to confront toxic behavior and people were taught to honor. It creates a war inside the soul between what you feel and what you've been conditioned to accept. You tell yourself, but they're my dad, or she's my mom, I can't say that, or that's just how my uncle talks. So you stay silent, you tolerate, you absorb the pain, you make excuses. And in doing so, you normalize patterns that eat away at your self-respect. You let guilt become your compass, and guilt is the worst guide when it comes to boundaries. There are parents who belittle their children under the disguise of tough love. There are siblings who compete more than they connect you. There are relatives who gossip about your struggles but show up to smile at your celebrations. And through all of it, you're told to keep the peace, not cause problems, forgive endlessly. And remember their family, but peace without truth is just quiet chaos. Forgiveness without change is just a cycle, and blood without loyalty is just biology. Toxic is not always violent or obvious. It can be subtle, generational, and wrapped in tradition. It shows up as control masked as concern. It shows up in backhanded compliments, in subtle jabs. In dismissive silence when you express pain. It shows up when they use your past as ammunition instead of understanding. And when you try to explain how it affects you, they shut you down with you. You're too sensitive. That's just how I am. Or the ever popular, you need to respect your elders. Respect is earned, not inherited. You. And age doesn't give someone permission to violate your mental health. One of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is redefine what family means. Because family is more than blood. It's behavior. It's consistency. It's how someone shows up when you're down, not how loudly they cheer when you're up. If someone constantly drains you, disrespects you, or disregards your truth, their title doesn't buy them unlimited access to your peace. There comes a point where the most loving thing you can do is step back, not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. Because loyalty to someone else should never come at the cost of betrayal to yourself. Toxic relatives often rely on your hesitation. They count on your conditioning. They know you were raised to obey, to submit, to carry the family name with pride, even if it's been a source of deep pain. They manipulate your fear of judgment. They twist your love into leverage. And when you finally start to break the cycle, they turn themselves into victims. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're ungrateful, but healing will always offend those who benefited from your wounds. Growth will always feel like rejection to people who only accepted you when you were small. You are not responsible for protecting someone's title when they repeatedly used it to excuse behavior that hurts you. You're not obligated to stay in spaces that leave you emotionally battered just because you share ancestry. You don't have to dim your light to fit back into a role that was built to keep you silent. You have a right to peace, to safety, to relationships that feed your growth, not threaten it. And the people who truly love you, whether they're related by blood or not, it will never require you to sacrifice your well-being to stay connected. Fake friends use your past as a weapon, not a lesson. They're the ones who smile when you're winning, but sharpen their knives with every mistake you make. They don't see your journey as a story of growth. They see it as ammunition. They don't support your evolution. They resent it. When you open up to them, you think you're sharing for connection, but you're really giving them bullets. And when the day comes that you step into your strength or draw a boundary, those bullets get fired back at you, coated in sarcasm, laced with passive aggression, or disguised as just being real. But what they call honesty is really hostility. What they call joking is really judgment. The truth is Some people never wanted to grow with you. They just wanted access to you while you stayed broken. You were relatable when you were wounded. You were manageable when you were unsure. But the moment you began to own your story, they started losing the version of you they could control. And when that happens, they don't adjust, they retaliate. They don't say it directly. They bring up who you used to be in front of others. They laugh about your past failures like they're harmless memories. But every laugh is a reminder. Every callback to your lowest moments is a subtle attempt to drag you back into an identity you've outgrown. You'll notice it most when you start healing, when you stop tolerating the jokes that sting you, when you stop answering texts that feel like emotional bait, when you stop needing their approval. That's when the mask slips. Suddenly they're cold. Suddenly they're distant. Or worse, suddenly they're aggressive, saying you've changed, that you think you're better now. And the answer to that is yes, you have changed. Not because you're perfect, but because you finally saw the truth. They were never celebrating you. They were surviving off the broken version of you that made them feel better about themselves. Fake friends will always pretend your pain is a punchline. But real friends know it's a process. They understand that the past is something you've worked hard to overcome, not something to keep you stuck. Real friends don't throw your history in your face. They hold it with respect. They don't weaponize your transparency. They guard it. But fake friends love access without accountability. They want you vulnerable, but not empowered. They want the old stories without the new standards. They want your loyalty, but never offer their own in return. It becomes clear when you start to grow beyond the versions of yourself they're comfortable with. You'll notice they never ask about what's next, only about what's already happened. They'll bring up your bad relationships, your mistakes, the moments you were lost. And when you redirect the conversation toward your goals or boundaries, you'll feel the tension shift. That shift is real. That discomfort is the friction between your growth and their need to keep you small. Because as long as you're defined by your past, you're easier to contain. And that's the real danger, allowing people to convince you that your evolution is arrogance, letting their need to remind you of where you've been stop you from reaching where you're going. Your past is not shameful, it's powerful, it's proof. But when left in the hands of the wrong people, it becomes a chain instead of a compass. That's why discernment matters more than duration. Some of the people you've known the longest will be the ones least qualified to walk with you into your future. Not because they're all bad people, but because they refuse to upgrade the version of you in their mind. They stay loyal to who you are, not who you're becoming. And when you stop feeding their fantasy, they lash out, not with fists, but with memories. They throw around the worst parts of your story like they own them, but they don't, you do. You earned the right to rise from those moments. You lived through them. You fought to become someone who doesn't flinch when the past is brought up because you've already dealt with it head on. But don't mistake your healing for an open door, Not everyone who knows your story deserves to walk with you through the next chapter. Not everyone who laughed with you deserves to grow with you. And not everyone who stayed through your chaos was truly loyal. Some were just collecting data, waiting for the moment they could use it against you when your light finally made them feel too small to stand beside it. Family that guilts you for healing is family that benefited from your pain, They're not upset because you're better. They're upset because they've lost control. Your healing threatens the structure they thrived in, The unspoken arrangement where your silence protected their comfort. For years, maybe decades, you carried wounds in the name of loyalty, ignored disrespect in the name of tradition, and swallowed your truth so others could sleep peacefully. The moment you decide to speak, step away, or rise above the dysfunction, they don't see it as growth. They see it as betrayal, That's how you know they were never rooting for your freedom, only for your obedience. When you start to heal, you break the roles they assign to you. The scapegoat, the emotional dumping ground, but the silent peacekeeper, the one who absorbs the toxicity so the system stays intact. But healing doesn't stay quiet. Healing disrupts. Healing sets boundaries. Healing confronts patterns. It says no when you were always expected to say yes. It chooses distance when proximity used to mean compliance. And when you stop playing your old part in their play, they don't rewrite the script. They call you selfish, cold, ungrateful. Not because you are any of those things, but because your evolution exposes their refusal to grow. It's hard to face especially when you're taught that family comes before everything. That blood is thicker than truth. That to question the system is to dishonor it. So when you begin to reclaim your voice, the guilt comes fast and heavy. It sounds like after everything we did for you, or you've changed, or why are you bringing up the past? But what they really mean is, why aren't you broken anymore? Why aren't you easy to manipulate? Why won't you shrink back down so they can feel big again? Guilt is not proof of wrongdoing. It's often the weapon of those who benefited from your silence. They might say they love you, but love that only shows up when you comply is not love. It's control. They might claim to want what's best for you, but if your healing makes them uncomfortable, it means what's best for you was never what they actually wanted. They were content with you hurting, as long as it didn't disturb the family image. They accepted your pain as long as it stayed in the dark, but healing brings light. And the moment you stop hiding, so does everything they tried to keep buried. They'll use phrases like forgive and forget, not because they want peace, but because they want you to stay silent. They'll frame your growth as a grudge, your boundaries as rebellion. But healing isn't revenge, it's repair. And sometimes that repair means building walls where doors used to be. Not out of hate, but out of necessity. You don't heal in the same environment that broke you, and no amount of guilt should drag you back into emotional captivity. When someone guilts you for healing you, they reveal their investment in your brokenness. They show you that your suffering served them. Maybe it kept them in power. Maybe it distracted from their own flaws. Maybe it allowed them to avoid accountability. But when you stand up and say, this hurt me, and they respond with anger or shame instead of understanding you, they are proving that your pain was never truly invisible to them. It was just convenient. You owe no one your deterioration. You owe no one your silence. Family is not a hall pass to violate your peace. And those who guilt you for healing are not mourning your distance. They're mourning their ability to keep you in a role that served them. They don't miss you. They miss their version of you. The one who didn't question, didn't resist, didn't demand more. But that version is gone, and that's the very evidence that you're healing. True family celebrates your wholeness. True family honors your boundaries. True family grows with you, not against you. The ones who truly love you won't guilt you for growing. They'll join you in it. But if your healing costs you people who only knew how to love the broken you, it's not a loss, it's a revelation. Let it reveal what needed to be seen all along.